So, what are the costs when buying your first property? Now, everybody automatically thinks about the mortgage, but what are the other costs? The one-off costs in order to get a mortgage. We'll do another video about the ongoing costs afterwards. So, the first thing I'd like to talk about is the survey. Now, when you're getting a survey, there are three different types. There's the mortgage valuation. Now, sometimes this is thrown in free as part of the mortgage, but it normally costs less than £500. Now, the reason this is because it's basically just for the lender to find out if the property you're buying is worth the money the purchase price. So what they do is they might go on Google Maps, they might do a drive-by, the Google Maps is called a desktop, they may attend, but it's normally a one-page report, and that report you don't even get to see it normally, it's purely with the lender. Now, the next type is called a home buyer's report. Now, the home buyer's report is on a traffic light system normally. So the way it would work is they assess different areas, and each area, if it's 100% good to go, it's green. If it's okay, but there are some issues, then it's yellow or amber, like traffic lights. And if it has serious problems, then it's red. Now, the areas that they normally look at in a home buyer's report are damp and rot, subsidence, drainage, asbestos, and sort of electrical things. Now, that report normally ranges from about £500 and can be well over £1,000. But you do get an actual report that you can look at and sort of figure out where you want. And at the end of the day, it is the most popular, and you are buying a property worth potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds. So maybe it's worth spending £1,000 on just checking it out to check that it's okay. Then you've got the full structural. Now, all my properties, I've always gone with full structural myself because I like to know exactly what I'm getting. The full structural is exactly what it sounds like. It gives you the full, whether it's structurally sound. It again looks at evidence of subsidence, so it doesn't just look for whether it's subsiding, i.e. Leaning over. It looks for evidence that it could potentially subside in the future as well. So it looks at the foundation and how all of that works. It looks at the condition of the windows. So not only does it look at the damp on the inside like the home buyer's report, but it looks at the condition of the windows. So potentially you could get damp later on down the line. It looks again at drainage. It looks at the condition of the roof. It looks at the condition of the floors. So, I mean, that report can sometimes cost up to £2,000. So again, it depends whether you think it's worth it, considering your property could be worth, £300,000, £400,000, £500,000. Is it worth spending that couple of thousand to find out what you could need to do? Because at the end of the day, after the report, you could use it to negotiate. So once you've got the report, you could go to the client, you could say, look, I know you're selling me this property. We've agreed this price of, say, 500,000, but I found X, Y, and Z on it. I've been told that it's an estimated, 5,000 to fix. How about decreasing the value by 3,000 or 2.5, and we'll meet halfway. So sometimes, the seller would renegotiate based on that. Not always, and you have to decide at that point, do you really want the property based on the condition you now know it's in? So the other cost that I wanted to talk about is conveyancer fees. Now, when I say conveyancer, there is a slight difference. Some people use solicitor, some people say conveyancer. Now, a solicitor is a lawyer that can work on all areas of the law. Now, conveyancer is specifically for property, so you can call them a solicitor. They are a solicitor. They've just specialised in property, so it makes them a conveyancer. Now, their costs, they're split into two, I would say. So you've got the conveyancer's legal fees, and that is obviously for them to actually do the physical work. And depending, it's best to get a quote up front. They normally relay it to the price of the property. It's normally a percentage of that, and depending on what it is, like for instance, if it was a remortgage, the fee would be a lot less than if it's like a shared ownership or something that's a little bit more technical. If it's just a straight purchase, it's kind of in midway, but if it's help to buy, or if it's shared ownership or right to buy and they need to do a bit more legal work, then it may be a little bit more. But normally speaking, on average, most of my first time buyers don't pay more than like 1,500, and that not only includes the conveyancer's legal fees, but it also includes the disbursements. What I mean by disbursements are their money that the solicitor takes on your behalf in order to pay third parties. So the most common one would be searches. Now, what searches are they'd search the land registry to confirm that the person that's selling you the property is actually on the title deed and they own it. They do searches for the environmental searches, they're called, and that looks at drainage and where the drains are, and if it's been in a flood area and things like that. So basically the searches are all, or they call them inquiries, they're all to look at the property, the ground it's on, anything linked to the property. That normally it goes to the environmental department in the council to find out more about the property and just check that everything is above board. And then once they get the searches back, they also would send out a questionnaire to the seller to fill out as well. Once they get them back, they do inquiries to question on your behalf, and that all is part of the legal fee that they have. The other thing they also pay is stamp duty. So you would give them the money and they would pay stamp duty on your behalf. Now, basically, if you are a first-time buyer and your property is less than 300k, then you're stamp duty exempt. You wouldn't pay any stamp duty. If your property is between 300,000 and 500,000, you'll pay 5% on the amount that's over the 300,000. So for instance, if your property is worth 500,000, you don't pay on the first 300, but you pay on the other 200. So 5% of 200 is £10,000. So that's an example of that. If you are a home mover, so that's basically if you've bought a property, you're selling that and you're moving on, the first 125,000 is tax free. Between 125 and 250, you pay 2%. Between 250 right up to 925,000, you pay 5% stamp duty. So just so you're aware of that. If you're buying an additional property, so on this channel I have talked a few times about buying another property as a buy to let, as an investment. For that, if it's worth between 0 and 125,000, that is 3%. If it's between 125,000 and 250, it's 5%. And if it's 250 up to the 925, it's 8%. So it's basically an extra 3% on top of the home movers bracket. But what I'll do, because I'm just flying numbers out here, and I will put this in the description, these 3 tables, so you can actually see what I'm talking about. But when you are actually going to buy your property, yes, you need the deposit, but you also need to put some money aside in order to pay for the legal fees, in order to pay for the survey and stamp duty and mortgage advisor and any other costs. I will be doing my next video on monthly costs that you'll be paying after you own the property, just so you're aware. So as I said, my name's Amanda Walker, I'm the mortgage coach, and everybody has a right to own their own home. Take care.